Hey listeners, after the pod, don't forget to claim your free 2-week trial on the Better Yoga Online Studio. You'll get unlimited yoga and breathwork classes guided by expert instructors. We're a small women-owned business, and you signing up for the free trial really makes a difference. Now here's the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Better Yoga Podcast. I am your host, Kari and I am joined by my dear friend and our resident Ayurveda expert, Larissa Hall Carlson. So we are filming this and turning it around quickly. We just passed the equinox this week. It is a wonderful time. Larissa and I are both yoga teachers. Wonderful time to teach and practice balancing postures.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And since my kids were little and I learned this trick, I love to take an egg and stand it upright on the equinox, and it will balance. So imagine that tree pose or Ardha Chandrasana Chapasana that might elude you at other times of year. It's a very good time to practice and do your balancing. Our goal of the podcast today is also going to talk about balancing not only in yoga, but internally, and how to align yourself with the rhythms of nature now that the season has shifted, now that we are, heading again more towards the darkness, leaving summer behind in a transitional season itself, right? Fall and spring are the transitional seasons between summer and winter. And of course, through the lens of the time-tested and proven Ayurveda. So, Larissa, thank you for joining me.
My pleasure, Kari. So good to be back with you and excited to get into such an important season. It's a season that so many people really find uncomfortable, moving into the cold, dry, windy season. And there are just so many things that we can do to create balance.
Well, that's shocking to me because sweater weather, it's sweater weather. And boots weather, and fashion-wise, it's fantastic. Although I live in the Berkshires, I have not dressed up in a very long time. I have to go somewhere to bring my nice sweaters and fancy boots with me. But for those of you that have found our podcast, because it is called the Better Yoga Podcast, and maybe you've been doing yoga for a decade or longer, and the word Ayurveda is something you've read in an article, or maybe you've taken a dosha quiz and you know the terms like Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, but how that relates to this change of seasons and our suffering. Because once you understand that, which is why I invited Larissa to come here, because she just teaches this so beautifully. And like I love to say, I call it Ayurveda, because once you understand the 5 elements, the macrocosm and the microcosm, for me, it's like, how did I live this long without knowing this stuff, right? Which is why it's such a pleasure and privilege of mine to be giving this education, and even through the format of this podcast, to be giving this like zero cost education to people to help them feel better in their bodies and be able to do better when you feel better. So thank you. Let's talk about Vata season, because this is where we're coming into now. And even if you don't live in the Northeast, I mean, we're really like, it's 75 today. It's going to be almost 80 degrees tomorrow. Larissa's a little bit further than I am in the Berkshires. She's in Vermont. But even if it's not quite starting to change yet, it will. And I want to make the observation, or to give the information that even if you're someone that lives down south, there's still a winter for Florida. There's still a winter for Georgia or Texas. And even that fluctuation of 5 degrees or 10 degrees, if you've been living there for a long time, that's still a change in your body, and that's still a change in the outside world. And you maybe you could appreciate this if you've moved somewhere. Like if you used to live somewhere more in the north and you live in the south, you acclimate to that new environment. And if you go back there, suddenly 60 degrees feels freezing to you. Right? You're cold because we've adjusted to that. And so just to make the point that even if you're not living in a place where there's 4 seasons, there's still a fluctuation of seasons of some point, and this will still apply to you to a much lesser degree, right?
And I just returned from teaching advanced pranayama YTT in Florida, where I teach pretty regularly. And for me, it was very toasty and warm down there, but for them, it had already started to shift out of the brutal heat of summer into a much more mild season. 80 degrees is mild down there at this time of year. But certainly as the months unfold, it does drop, and they can have mornings that are, in the 40s or 50s sometimes, and December, January, February, and folks in Florida, they'll pull out their Ugg boots and put on their hoodies and really really bundle up, and it is a change. It is a change, and so no matter where one lives on the planet, the weather changes with the seasons, and the amount of light changes. The sunrise and sunset time change, and adapting to the season and really living skillfully with the season is what the science of Ayurveda is really all about. Because through that living with the season, living in harmony with the weather, we can prevent a lot of discomfort.
Yeah, that's such a good point about the light, because folks can really probably relate to that, right? That when it's harder to get out of bed, if it's dark later, or the evening comes so much faster, right? But this is part of the wisdom of living in harmony with that, is like having that earlier evening, right? We're not up and out until, like, it's not light out until 9 o'clock anymore. And that's going to really start to come earlier and earlier and earlier. I have chickens, and we have to put them in bed every night. Got to close the coop. And the reminder that we set to close the coop, even though at this point we don't need a reminder anymore, but we have to keep moving it up. And then in the spring, we've got to keep moving it forward and moving it forward. And it's a real way to mark time, right? When you're taking care of a creature that lives very much in tune with nature, like farm animals do. We fool ourselves all the time. Oh, I just turn the AC on, or I put a sweater on, or I do this, or I do that. And it's like, that doesn't affect me, but it affects us down on a cellular level.
Yeah, it
And that's
does.
really part of the mitigating the suffering, is understanding that. So,
Yeah, so this is really a time of year, from the Ayurvedic perspective, which is, Ayurveda being a full system of medicine, a beautiful, sophisticated, ancient system of medicine that applies to modern living. Ayurveda says that this is the season where the Vata dosha takes over, and Vata is made of space and wind. It is a kind of force that has certain functions in nature, in the macrocosm of nature, in the weather, as well as in the microcosm of the body mind, in the way that the different systems and organs work. And so externally in the macrocosm, as we move into this Vata season of autumn, we notice, less warmth. It gets colder and drier and windier. We have less light, more darkness. And that's going to start affecting the microcosm of the body mind. And I'm sure some listeners have already started to notice the skin starts to get a little drier this time of year. The lips begin to crack if you don't pay attention. The hair gets more brittle. You start feeling more cold, needing that cover up and shawl and little beanie and ear coverings and things like that. Like it's time for that. And if we don't respond skillfully to the changing qualities in the weather, then those qualities really beat us up, essentially. They accumulate, they aggravate in the system, and they overflow and they cause suffering. And so it's really about paying close attention to what's happening externally and noticing how that can um, really create imbalance internally if we don't plan ahead.
right. And let's just go back to So the five elements,
Mhm.
right? So we're talking about earth and water and fire and air and space. And
Mhm.
so Vata dosha, like Larissa said, is air and space. And this is the season we're moving into is governed by that Vata dosha, air and space. And if you think about the wind and the leaves blowing around and falling down, and the leaves dry out and they get rough and they get brittle. And these are the qualities, we call them the gunas, right? These 10 pairs of opposites, and opposites being the key word there. So the qualities of fall: dry, rough, mobile, cold, subtle.
Mhm.
So what's the opposite of those? And when you understand this, you become the maestro, right? You become the conductor. You become the alchemist of, okay, it's cold and rough and dry. Let's bring in more moistness, more warming, and more grounding. So we need the earth to combat the stratosphere of that air and space. And it's so easy. And
It's so easy, and it's so, um, it seems obvious. Is some of those choices really, it's common sense? Like, okay, it's getting cold out, so you put on a sweater. It's getting cold out, and you're going to eat soup instead of salad. Like it seems obvious, but some of the initial changes are very subtle. And they creep in. It's very subtle and it creeps in. It's like, wow, suddenly the skin is dry. You didn't
yeah,
really even
my
notice
one
how
spot
dry the
that
air
my
has
one
been, right?
spot that gets dry first and stays driest the longest. It's like, oh, that started.
Yeah. Or
Um,
like you go out for a morning walk and it's like, oh, it's still nice enough to be out in a t-shirt, but wow, my ears are a little cold. And so it's those little creepy accumulations of gunas that start to cause the initial signs and symptoms of discomfort, which can escalate if unchecked. Those can escalate to big conditions of imbalance and even over time disease states if we get into etiology and pathology of disease, which we won't do
right.
today.
Not
But
today.
essentially
Other
these
time.
things really, yeah, these accumulate. And so paying attention to those changes and skillfully responding is really essential. And it is about common sense, but it is about really, and I hope that this is what listeners will really get through this podcast, is it's about expanding our perspective and awareness and ability to plan ahead, respond skillfully, and stay balanced instead of kind of getting smacked around by the elevated elements and their qualities, and then having to sort of crawl back to balance.
Right.
Ayurveda is really preventative medicine. We want to prevent getting uncomfortable in the body mind. It can certainly work well to back out disease states and
Mhm.
discomforts and sicknesses, but we'd much rather focus on prevention. And so, right now is the time to really pay close attention to choices around diet, lifestyle, exercise, self care, and even yoga, because all of those things can be adjusted to really balance out this cold, dry, windy Vata season.
Right. Yeah. Let's start with something much more tangible for people to understand. And
Mm,
so if you're starting to experience dry skin, like my daughter had said to me, Mom, my legs are dry. I was like, Abhyanga. We will explain that in a moment, but it's warm oil on the body, right?
mm,
The when you start to get dryness on the skin, it's the outward sign that there's dryness in the body. Remember,
mm,
dry is one of the qualities of fall. And so the dryness also would happen in the organs.
mm,
The bowels are one of the organs of Vata. It's the main site of Vata dosha, and Vata is the fall season.
mm,
And so you're going to start to feel a change in your digestion
mm,
if you're not responding, like Larissa said, preemptively or at the first signs where it's creeping in. So this is the time you might notice you have more constipation.
mm,
You're not having as regular a bowel movement, or it's different. The qualities or
mm,
the volume or the shape or the texture of it is different. And so to start to be able to have more oil in the diet, more hydration, and to not throw cold water on your digestive fire right now, right? Um, we're seasoned in Chinese medicine too. It's the season of lungs and large intestine, right? So those are the ones. And when the lungs get dry, you're more prone to illness. We're going into cold and flu season and respiratory disorders. And so, like you said, Ayurveda just being the preventative medicine so we don't get sick, right?
Right,
Any
so it really
disease.
focuses on that law that you're talking about, Kari, that those opposites are so important. And for listeners, the two main laws are basically like increases like and opposites decrease. Like increases like or opposites balance or harmonize. And so again, these are two laws of common sense, but we don't always make choices based on these two laws of Ayurveda. So if it's cold outside and we eat a lot of cold foods, cold plus cold equals more cold, like increases like. But if it's cold outside and we choose to eat warm foods, cold plus warm equals balance or harmony, right? So the same is true in the example that you've just given with the skin, right? If it's dry outside or we're noticing dryness on the skin or dryness in the bowels or dryness on the lips or dryness in the nail beds, dryness in the hair follicles, vaginal dryness, if we're noticing dryness, then that dry quality has accumulated. And then if we eat foods or do things that are really drying, dry plus dry equals more dry, right?
Yeah.
And whereas dry plus moist, or as you've suggested, oily or unctuous, wet, these qualities are opposite of the dryness. And so in the fall season, when it's dry in the macrocosm of nature and the body starts to accumulate dryness both on the skin and internally, then the way to rectify that is through oil and more moisture and unctuousness in the diet, in the self-care practices, and even in the way we practice the yoga, right? And so it really does require looking around and seeing how one can pull in more moisture as well as the other opposite qualities to the Vata season, like warmth, right? As you suggested, we don't want cold water. We don't want to throw cold water in digestion because it's a cold season. Cold plus cold equals more cold. So it's actually time for more warmth plus more wetness, right? And as you've also suggested, more slowing down or grounding to balance that kind of whipping wind that a lot of people feel as a kind of sense of being spread too thin or overwhelmed or scattered or restless or ungrounded or spacey or jacked up or revved up or hyper, these are all signs of what Vata would identify as excess wind showing up in the nervous system, in the endocrine system, in the mind, in the body. So it's really about identifying those qualities and proactively preventing them from accumulating and then pulling them back if they have accumulated with lots of warmth, wetness, and grounding.
And, regardless of this season changing and having more of the cooler temperatures and more wind and the drying out of nature, our schedules become so overloaded. Back to school, back to work, back to, if you have children, it's the morning breakfast, making lunches, sending them off to school, making the bus on time after practices or games or if you're a soccer mom, like it's just the weekends are taken up, right? There's this fall festival and that it's just like just that alone can be have a sense of overwhelm, right? There's so much, and Larissa's always saying that the answer is always just simplify. And so by simplifying the diet, and we've already kind of segued into that, but by simplifying the diet and just thinking about bringing in those qualities can really go a long way to ease the overwhelm of the nervous system, right? And you talked about dry foods. Can we just touch on that a little bit? Because I feel like we say that, but it's often not explained. And so like dry, like crackers,
Yeah, correct. So what's really important to note is that, Ayurveda doesn't judge these things that we're about to give examples of. It doesn't judge it as being right or wrong or good or bad. Ayurveda is just really interested in the qualities. Is the substance hot or cold, dry or moist, subtle or gross? Is it sharp or dull? Is it cloudy or clear?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. We're interested in those qualities. So foods that have the same qualities as Vata, foods that are very dry and light and subtle and cold. These are foods that are basically raw, right? Raw foods that are uncooked, and not good or bad, but they're rough, and hard and cold typically. And then foods that are um, uh, often, foods that are baked, like granola and bread, popcorn, crackers, yeah, rice cakes, things like that. These are all
It's just
foods,
air.
right?
It's more
Yeah,
air,
just
more
air,
change.
right? It's like there's nothing wrong with any of those foods, but they don't they increase that equation, right? Like light plus light equals more light, cold plus cold equals more cold, rough plus rough equals more rough, dry plus dry equals more dry. So if
Mhm.
we're already feeling cold and dry and rough, and then we eat a bunch of rice cakes and, cold granola, and rough bread, things like that, then
Toast.
the toast.
Toast. It's just rough bread that you've dried out more.
Yeah, right? Like, plus like a cold smoothie, plus like a cold, raw, rough salad, with like raw, hunky carrots in there and stuff that like scratch your throat if you don't chew them
Mhm.
thoroughly, right? These are all foods that are not ideal for the fall and winter because they already have the same qualities of Vata that governs the fall and winter. And so we want to favor opposite qualities. And the beautiful thing about Ayurveda is it recognizes that Mother Nature is very wise, and it gives us the antidote to each season in the seasonal harvest. So right now we're starting to get lots of apples. I just went apple picking last weekend. I'm getting my apple a day, very
Yes.
sweet, juicy, really, really lovely fruit to transition from summer to fall. Really, really excellent. Good for clearing out um, excess in the body, really, really great for that. But we're going to be moving into the fall harvest, which is filled with sweet fruits and lots of hearty root vegetables. It's like pumpkin and acorn squash is already showing up in the farmer's market, and nuts are falling from the trees, like acorns, right?
Corn.
These like heavy, dense, fatty, protein-rich nuts are they're falling from the trees right now. And wheat is traditionally harvested in the fall, which is a very sticky grain. It's a very sticky, heavy grain. So it's designed for this light season. We're meant to eat wheat more in the fall and winter, less in the spring and summer. We don't need those same qualities, right? And then we're getting like beets and carrots and parsnips and, really hearty greens showing up right now. And so the earth is giving us a harvest that's very dense and thick and heavy. And I would even say kind of like wet and gooey, right? There's
Mhm.
like, yeah, like pumpkin is really wet and gooey inside,
Yeah.
That's the spaghetti squash, like really wet and gooey. And so if we eat in harmony with the season, which is, by the way, nice on the wallet because whatever is in season is in
On sale.
abundance and on sale, right? So Ayurveda is good on your wallet. It's good for budget. But right now is the time to really start pulling back from the cold summer salads, which were perfect in the hot summer season, and move more towards steamed veggies, vegetable soups, which I have on the stove right now, um, roasted squash, baked apples, apple cobbler,
Mhm.
moving towards things that are warm and wet and gooey and chewy and soft and mushy, because those are the qualities opposite to this fall and winter season that are really going to help the body stay warm and the GI tract soft and mushy like a good slip and slide. That's what we want it to feel like in there. Yeah, that's essentially it for diet.
Your body makes the food bolus, it makes it into a soup.
Mm,
The kind, right? It's like,
mm,
so if we can eat in that state already, the digestion doesn't have to work as hard. And it's not about, for those of you that are listening, like, I eat a salad every day for lunch because I'm healthy. It's, it's not about, yeah, salad is full of healthy things. But in Ayurveda, like you having to cook that salad in order to get the nutrients out of it is much harder on the digestion. And like Larissa said, it's cold and rough during the cold and rough season. In summer, where our digestive fire is lower to try and balance the heat of the summer, that's the remedy for the season. And now it could be creating, especially if you're eating it with something that's warm and cooked. And this is like, it's very confusing for the digestive system again. And it's just like not simplifying. So a spinach salad versus cooked spinach with oil on it, there's going to be a much more aligned choice to bring balance in this season. Right.
Right.
And if you
So
think
just
about it,
soft and cooked. Yeah, simple, seasonal foods, seasonal vegetables, seasonal grains. Um, that are cooked. So soups and stews and casseroles and roasted vegetables and steamed vegetables and sautéed vegetables and stir fries even. This is the time of year that you can do that. So you're just adding in more oil and warmth and making the food soft and easy to digest. That's key.
yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the warming spices that you would start or teas that you would
Mm-hmm.
like? Because you're going to shift
Yeah.
your food. Like I'm starting to shift my
Mm-hmm.
tea. I'm, not just
Yeah.
having the peppermint now or that.
That's right. So I like to shift the spice cabinet around with the season as well. So I'm starting to pull back those summer spices like cilantro, fennel, mint, rose, shredded coconut, things like that, and putting in some of the warming spices for the cold season. So these are all the like fall favorites, all the like spiced candle scents.
Apple
Yeah,
pie mix.
exactly. Totally. So it's
Christmas,
like,
Christmas spirit.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So now it's time for cinnamon, cardamom, nutmeg, clove, ginger, a little turmeric can be okay. That's a big spring one, but we can use
Yeah.
turmeric. We can use turmeric really throughout the year. But the cinnamon and clove and nutmeg are so great this time of year, and the cardamom. Oh my goodness. So,
Yeah.
so excellent. And those are the things we see in the fall desserts, right? Like
Just
in
made me want to
apple
bake
pie and
something.
such. Yeah. Yeah, I know.
I'm gonna bake
I've got my
something.
my brand new sourdough starter and I'm getting ready to bake something this weekend. Yeah. Yeah.
So good. Yeah, I haven't wanted to turn the oven on in months, and
Yeah.
now
We've made soup 2 days in a row. I've got kitchery going. Yeah, and a whole pile of apples that we just picked. So I'm getting ready to decide what to make with that.
Oh,
But it is, it's making those shifts will support digestion because those warming spices aid digestion and they support the body in breaking down those heavier seasonal foods, right? Like you can't just eat a pumpkin raw, right? Like pumpkin, it has to be cooked, like it's indigestible to just eat it raw, right? It's a very thick, dense, uh, grounding kind of vegetable. And just like the acorn squash, like they're very thick and dense. They have these qualities opposite to the season.
you can
And
barely
so,
cut through them.
right, you can barely cut through them. Exactly. And so not only do we want to cook them to make them warm and soft, but we also want to add in digestive spices like the cinnamon and such, and ginger and black pepper is a great one to kick up this time of year to aid digestion. Those more pungent spices will help break down those thicker foods that are going to really help keep the body feeling stable, grounded, relaxed in a season where, as you've already identified, often the schedule kicks up, life gets more intense, there's holidays, there's travel, there's kids in school, there's so much going on, and we need some really grounded, nourishing stability to stay calm and relaxed during a season where people often feel really, really scattered. Have trouble sleeping, that's another sign of elevated Vata. Getting more gas and bloating, that's another sign of elevated Vata. Too much wind in the gut, right? having more burping and feeling more headachy, uh, having energy fluctuations, this lack of routine. These are all things that can accumulate in the Vata season. Feeling stressed, anxious, like these are light as opposed to being heavy emotions. Not that one is, it's not that something's easier or harder, but it's more of like a floating or being pulled around by life when feeling stressed or anxious versus, a heavy kind of emotion like feeling stuck in the mud or lethargic or sluggish, right? So in this season of fall and winter, when there's elevated vata in the macrocosm of nature, in the weather, when it's cold and windy, that's vata showing up in the weather. And we can feel spun in that way, and it can spin up the emotions. And a lot of people really feel the stress and anxiety and insomnia, or just feeling disconnected, lost, lonely. These are
Yeah.
additional, like, classic signs of elevated vata. And by eating warm, wet foods, hydrating more, taking in more of like the cinnamon teas, ginger tea, tulsi tea, which I
Mm.
love in this season, it's kind of warm and grounding. These things really help on a physical level to stay rooted. And then we can layer on self-care and yoga to that.
Right. And if you just think about the language around it,
Mm.
so you're talking air and space and movement, you feel winded, ungrounded, scattered, spacey, spinning, out of
Mm.
control. Like it's all in that descriptive again.
Mm.
And then you're going to eat some root vegetables, some nuts, something heavy
Roasted nuts,
and
yeah.
grounded, right? Right.
Roasted chestnuts, yeah.
um, that's going to be the antidote for the body mind. Right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, getting
But it
the
requires like, and this is what I love about the yoga path, and a lot of our listeners here are yogis, and the yamas and niyamas teach us about non-attachment, right? Not being attached. And so Ayurveda really sees that, there are we think of foods and like daily intake, or intake of nutrition on an annual level or a seasonal level instead of like the daily intake, the daily vitamin amount. And so like in the fall and winter, we're going to get a lot of these really heavy, dense foods. In the spring, we're going to get a lot of very light sprouts and asparagus and things that are very detoxing and cleansing and low fat and low calorie. In the summer, we get a lot of like really juicy, kind of high calorie, very easy to digest,
yeah,
fruits and
fruits.
such. And so
Mhm.
it's going to change based on the season, but we live in a time where we can access any kind of food from any place on the planet, any time of day. And so folks have really lost connection to what actually is seasonal and can be attached to, oh, I have a smoothie and a salad every day, 365 days a year. And that's not going to work out so well with living in harmony with the seasons and the weather, and not for nothing supporting the microbiome, because the microbiome is supported by local, seasonal,
Right,
organic
eating
foods,
the
right?
bugs
Yeah,
from
yeah,
the earth.
yeah.
And it changes throughout the year, just
Mhm,
like, like winter weight used to be a thing.
mhm, mhm,
You were eating those heavier foods.
mhm,
You needed the insulation
mhm,
because we didn't have temperature control at our
mhm,
fingertips all the time. So that was your insulation. And then, like you said, the very bare minimum that is around by spring because you've eaten everything that you stored for the winter. That's the austere time of the year, and that's
mhm,
when the detox happens,
mhm,
right? Um, and because we're in diet, and we do a cleanse 3 times a
mhm,
year,
mhm,
and so we're gearing up to do our annual fall cleanse.
mhm,
Can you talk a little bit, Larissa, about the importance of cleansing,
mhm,
and especially at the fall transition right now,
mhm. Yeah,
going from the heat to the winter?
yeah. So, something we keep alluding to is this, Vata being so windy and how it can create this sense of overwhelm, and how in this time of year, and as we move into the deeper Vata season of winter, the holiday buzz and the holiday travel and the holiday season and stressors and such, that what's really most important is to balance all of that busyness with simplifying, right? Slowing down, trying to say no more often, trying to do less more often, bringing in more mindfulness. Ayurveda would say the opposite to busyness is quiet
Mindfulness.
time. Yeah, mindfulness, right? Mindful quiet time. And so the fall is really Vata season part 1, and winter is Vata season part 2. It's a long season. Vata governs the longest, period of the year here in this colder climate. And so we want to prepare for that intensity by slowing way down in the beginning of fall and resetting digestion from the shifts of spring and summer, and clearing out anything that has accumulated, including, summer ice cream and barbecue sauce and, whatever, martinis folks had, while out and
Rosé.
about socializing. Yeah,
Summer water.
rosé. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, when so the body it accumulates toxins throughout the year based on our choices and how well we're digesting. And Ayurveda likes to cleanse out those toxins, especially in the fall and in the spring, when the temperature is fairly mild and the body can handle a little more discipline.
Mm.
Those times of year, right? A schedule that is a little bit more strict, a little more austere. And so in the fall, we do classically a detox program that is very simple. It's a mono diet of a perfect protein called khichdi, which is made of organic basmati rice and split yellow mung beans. And there's some other choices we could have in there, but it's a perfect protein, and it's somewhat like a porridge. It has that kind of porridge consistency. It's made with classically with ghee, which is clarified butter, which is very unctuous. It's a perfect fat, very clean fat, which, by the way, has a way of soothing the nervous system. So it's like a nervine. Ghee is both a pure, unctuous fat that's excellent for the skin and the gut, but it also calms the mind and soothes the nerves. It's very different than regular butter. It's really sweet. It's got many, many special properties. So we have ghee in this porridge, and then digestive spices like black pepper and turmeric, and things like cumin, coriander, maybe fennel, perhaps mustard seeds. That's another one that might come out this time of year. There are lots of different warming spices that we can bring in to support digestion. And then we cook into this perfect protein porridge the seasonal vegetables. So I like to make it with beets and carrots and kale. That's kind of my favorite trio. But we can put in sweet potatoes and squash and
Yeah.
fennel and anything you like. All the seasonal vegetables can go in there, and we like to rotate that. And we eat that as a mono diet. So a bowl of khichdi for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner. And no snacking during the cleanse. It's just a mono diet of this perfect protein, getting lots of vitamins and minerals and supporting the microbiome with the local organic seasonal veggies.
Right.
And then we add on to that some very detoxifying teas like cumin, coriander, fennel tea, as well as tulsi. And we can bring in, things that are soothing like chamomile, or more supportive like nettles, lots of different tea options for us. But it's basically doing a really nice job on the gut, of making the gut very soft and supple and receptive, taking in food that is very, very easy to digest. It's also comfort food. It's warm, it's soft, it's mushy, it's delicious. And then flushing out toxins with the teas and a lot of hydration, a lot of warm water, lemon or lime water throughout the day, just flushing out the toxins. And basically the way that this works is ghee itself, clarified butter, it goes into the gut, but then it spreads out into circulation essentially. And you can think of it like gum with peanut butter stuck in, if you get gum stuck in your hair, it's like, peanut butter helps pull the gum out, right? Ghee is kind of sticky, and it gets into all the little nooks and crannies in the body where the body is hiding out toxins. For some, that's right in the lymph. For others, it's hiding out in the muscle tissue. It can lodge in the joints. It can lodge in all sorts of spots, And the ghee like wiggles its way into those little subtle secret spots, and it grabs the toxins. We call them ama in Sanskrit, ama, and ama is like food sludge. And so it grabs the ama, and then through other self-care practices that we do in the cleanse, like daily exfoliation massage and self-massage with oil, we massage the body, and we do yoga practices and breath work that helps move those toxins from the extremities and the periphery into the center line, into the GI tract. And that those toxins will dump mainly in the stomach, but they can dump in the lungs, and you might cough out some stuff, and some of it will sweat out through the skin. But most of those toxins make their way to the GI tract. And then with the teas and such, we're flushing those toxins out. So they come out through urination and through the release of the bowels every day. And that's essentially the pathway of the detox. So what's most important for this, I know it's an earful, friends, but what's most important from the Ayurvedic perspective when we're doing detox, the most important thing is making sure that the nerves are calm and relaxed because we have to be in the rest and digest nervous system, or the parasympathetic nervous system state. We have to be in that most of the time so that the body can feel soft and supple, the pathways can dilate, the ghee can move easily, and we can release things. But if we're in the go, go, go nervous system, the fight or flight nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system state, what that does is it clamps down, right? And modern science has proved this. Exactly, right?
Survival mode.
Exactly. And so that means it clenches. And not only in the gut, but throughout the whole system. It basically clenches and it holds. And it is virtually impossible to get a good detox happening when one is in that fight or flight nervous system state, or the overdrive state, or the overwhelm state, or the fried state, or the spread too thin state, or the too much on your schedule state. And so if life is really, really busy during a cleanse, if we're working and balancing a lot of things and multitasking and running around and doing intense yoga and exercising a lot and, doing 1,000 things, you could eat all the khichdi you want and drink all the detox tea you want. The body won't release all the toxins. That's fact. And so a huge part of the cleanse is actually scheduling downtime, taking a lighter schedule at work, reducing errands. A lot of our cleansers take the week off or part of the week off or do half days, And we do yoga practices that are detoxifying. They help move and enhance circulation, but they're also very calming and relaxing so that we get this vasodilation that allows the toxins to be flushed out. So I know that's a lot to digest, but it's not just what we do in Ayurveda that matters. What matters most is how we do it, And so we want to eat mindfully. We want to slow down. We want to relax. We want to calm down. We want to do less. We want to say no. And that can be really tough in the beginnings, which is why it's nice to do it in community, to do it together with people who have, gotten some momentum in this regard. And then we can really get some significant change, clearing out not only physical toxins, but also undigested emotions and feelings and old thoughts and just blahness and dullness and like thought patterns that just get stuck in a rut, it gets stuck in a thought pattern. And so all of those things can be mindfully and carefully and safely released as long as the nervous system is in a kind of calm manner.
Save 15% on Ayurvedic products like oils, herbs, cleansing supplies, and more from Banyan Botanicals. Use the code 15KARI. That's 15 KARI. The link is in our show notes. You deserve to know exactly what's in your greens and protein powders. That's why Vibrant Health fully discloses every ingredient by dose and never uses proprietary blends. Save 20% on your next order with the code BETTER_YOGA. That's better_yoga for 20% off Vibrant Health supplements and superfoods.
Yeah, that just made me think, because also this might be a new concept to people, but that being stuck in a mental pattern, or that monkey mind again and again and again. In Ayurveda, they say everything has to be digested. So everything that you take in through the eyes, through the nose, through the ears, through the mouth has to be digested. Your experiences. And when you're stuck in that ruminating, that pondering, that, oh, I should have said or could have said, or like the playing something again and again and again, is your nervous system trying to process something. And so a cleanse can be a great opportunity to really digest some hard emotions, hard experiences. Again, if the setting is right. And we will link to our cleanse. It's starting on the 19th of October, launching on the 20th, through the 25th. We will link to that in our show notes. But even if you're not going to do it, it's a time right now to bring in again those warmer, those moisture, those grounded qualities in the diet. I know that nature provides the remedy. You just went apple picking. I love going apple picking. I haven't done it yet. Apples and pears is what nature is giving us right now, in addition to the root vegetables and everything. But when I eat an apple, I get a stomach ache within 10 minutes. I never used to growing up, or maybe I did and I just wasn't aware of it, or maybe my digestion was much more robust and, earlier on. But the cooking of the apple, like one of my favorite is to do the apple and the ghee with the cinnamon and the cardamom and the little ginger. That is like comfort in a bowl. It's also dessert, like for breakfast. Like you don't have to, you don't have to just do an apple pie with those apples. Like just cooking the apples is so delicious. And in terms of it being more bioavailable for the body, right? It's much more, you're much more able to digest it without the cold, harsh qualities of eating it raw.
Definitely. Definitely those stewed apples, cooked apples, baked apples. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Haven't shifted to the breakfast yet, but definitely it is such a good breakfast to have those stewed apples in there with the digestive spices. Absolutely. So these are lots of simple tips that are in abundance. They're simple, they're effective, and practices that can really shift how one feels as the fall turns into winter. If you start early, if you start now, especially in the morning when it's coldest right now in the morning, and so that's a time to shift away from a smoothie or a bowl of granola with cold milk, and maybe just have granola with warm milk for a few days, and then shift to oatmeal or start doing stewed apples, or go into
Soak the muesli in warm milk. It's so good.
Yeah, so good. Such simple choices can make a big difference. And for those who are considering trying a cleanse for the first time, it's never going to be perfect. You don't have to take off the whole week from work, although if you can, we strongly encourage that. But you just give it a go, to simplify, to do less, to join together in community, we do journaling, we do yoga together every day. It's detoxifying yoga with breath work that's so lovely. And the community aspect is a big piece to the cleanse. And everything's recorded. If you can't you know, come to everything live, you can always watch the recordings. But even if you can pop in for a few minutes at the beginning of a session and just say hi to everybody, and then watch the rest on recording, that works too. And it's really about getting the first one under your belt, kind of come in, give
Yeah.
it a try. It won't be perfect, but starting to make the kitchery, simplify the diet, and have a home retreat. It's like a home spa week. You get to
Mhm.
massage yourself with oil and do yoga every day and eat delicious food. And we talk about aromas for the fall. There's so many components to the cleanse that might meet the needs that your system's calling for right now.
Yeah.
And if there's any worry about the emotional stuff that cleanses, sometimes folks have a good cry, during the cleanse. Like things can come up, old stuff can come up when we slow down. We recommend folks reach out and, if they're doing a cleanse, consider making an appointment with your counselor or therapist if you have one, because it might be a nice week to have a little bit of extra talk time with a professional,
Right.
especially if there's
Those
something deep
undigested
and
emotional
hard in
piece.
there. Yeah, if you need professional support around there, it's important to plan ahead that way too. Maybe getting an extra massage, seeing your acupuncturist, things like that can be really useful to plan in a cleanse as well.
Yeah. It's so beautiful and so needed. And
Mm.
it made me think because you talked about getting the first one under your belt. So many of our cleanse participants are repeat
Yes,
cleansers,
yeah.
right? It's one of those things where you're like, I don't know if I could ever do a cleanse. I don't know if I could ever do a cleanse. And then you do a cleanse, and there's always a day that's really hard, whether you've done it one time or 20 times. But by the end, to watch the experience of everyone on the other side or going through that hard thing together
Mm,
and supporting each other. But when you heal your gut
mm,
and the cells, the lining of the gut, they regenerate all the time.
mhm,
So when you stop insulting your gut by your
mm,
choices, maybe knowingly or unknowingly, your gut begins to heal and then it affects everything, right?
mm,
Your immune system is in your gut. The seat of the doshas are in your gut. And when that begins to heal, the brain fog clears.
big time.
You sleep better. Your stomach doesn't hurt
Mm,
after you eat. Like if you have indigestion or reflux or gas or bloating, look at your choice. It's not actually normal. And people have just think like, well, that's just my stomach, or my mother was the same way, or this is just normal. It's
mm,
not normal. It's your body really speaking to you
mhm,
to pay attention. That something is needed, some care is needed. And just listening to podcasts like this can give you more information of like, oh, well, maybe I'll ask this question or go to this person or find out more about Ayurveda or try a cleanse. But it's life changing for
mm,
so many people that do it, which is why they come back.
mm,
Because it's also not about being austere 365 days a year. It's
mm,
about knowing how to again shift and how we started this podcast. So right here at the autumnal equinox, like
mhm,
being in balance. It's about knowing what to do to bring yourself back to balance before you're spun out, fried, burnt out. Need a spatula to get you up off the floor again, right? Um, and so you touched on the abhyanga and getting and then a warm oil massage. So I want to just talk a little bit about the lifestyle practices
yeah,
because that is like a pillar in Ayurveda and how to stay healthy. Or is
mm,
that those routines? Because really, our health is not about doing a cleanse in the fall. It's about our daily habits and small
mhm,
choices to keep us in the middle, to keep us in balance, right? And so some of the, again, free or low cost practices to mitigate the ama, the toxins, the buildup, which is the root cause of disease according to Ayurveda, and how when this season shifts, what we can do to help ourselves.
Hmm. Big time. Yeah. The cleanse is like a special, you know, a special event that,
Yeah.
that we do. It's like an immersion, like a meditation retreat, in that we really dig in and kick up the practices significantly.
Yeah.
But as you've said, Kari, it's what we do every day that really makes the most difference. And Ayurveda is interested in slow, sustainable, safe change. Right. And so a few things that are free and easy and incredibly effective would be not just what we're eating, but when we eat and how we eat. And these are big parts of the Ayurvedic lifestyle, the when and how of eating. The classic texts actually say how we eat is more important than when and what, which is like mind blowing to folks who are so used to diet trends. But actually, what we like to do in Ayurveda is have 3 meals a day without snacking, or with minimal snacking, or with like fruit as a snack, you know? And breakfast is basically as big as your hunger level is that morning, so it could fluctuate a little bit. Lunch is the biggest meal of the day. When the digestive fire is strongest in the gut tends to be at lunchtime, just as the sun is highest in the sky at that time of day. The macrocosm and the microcosm are lined up. So Ayurveda likes to have a big hearty lunch and then a small early dinner so that we have 2 or 3 hours at least to digest before going to bed. We like to try to go to bed by 10 p.m.-ish or so and wake up around, 5, 6, 7-ish a.m., something like that, somewhere around sunrise. And so
That's
having
very generous. For
yeah, and being
at
very
7
generous. Yeah.
a.m. This woman wakes up at 4.
I'm awake at 4. Yeah, I'm asleep at 8. I'm up at 4. It's true. I'm trying to speak to the greater population.
To the Gen Pop.
So yeah, the dinner between 5 and 7 p.m. is really ideal. That's a great time. Just similar to how probably most everyone's grandparents used to eat.
Yeah.
Like that.
And
when we
not
were
how we
raised.
eat now when we're just getting home from, again, the practices, the pickups, the carpools, the work, the late work meeting, the thing after. But yeah, it is a game changer. It's
Yeah.
something, it's where I'm bravely working. I still have 2 teenagers at home, and it just,
It's
it's
hard,
hard.
and it's not about perfection, but shifting. What happens for a lot of folks in our culture is skip
Breakfast.
they skip breakfast, or they like eat something while commuting, which is, we're going to talk about the how of eating in a moment, but that's pretty much indigestible if you're eating on the go. And then lunch is like a smoothie or a salad in a work meeting, which again is very, very difficult to digest. And then in the afternoon, folks are starving because they haven't really been eating throughout the day. And so then they want snacks all afternoon, and they're hitting up the snack carts and
Right.
the injectables in the coffee shop, and then eat like a huge dinner late before bed. And it's like all that stuff causes energy fluctuations during the day, blood sugar fluctuations during the day, mood swings during the day, um, more snacking and taking in more calories and maybe things that aren't ideal during the day, as well as disturbing sleep, accumulating toxicity, um, putting on weight and water retention. And Ayurveda would say, and as a clinician for the last 15 years, and I do one-on-one, just as Kari does, and listeners, if you want one-on-one support, you can always reach out to us. But the teaching is right here for free. Like
Yeah.
eating earlier and smaller will allow sleep to be more deep and uninterrupted. It will allow the body to digest that food before going to bed, which prevents waking up feeling puffy and swollen and like with bad breath and lots of mucus and like snoring and sleep apnea. And I could spend a whole hour just talking about how shifting the times of meals drastically reduce
We
things
should
that people have,
do that.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's
We
do
should
that because
totally do
so
that.
many people are working with like sleep apnea and water retention. They wake up puffy, they're holding extra weight, and it may not be because they're eating terrible food. it might be because they're just eating too much too late at night.
Yeah, well, that goes to the how, which also ties into the when. And uh, when I read something in the last year
Hmm.
that you eat so too close to bedtime, you're not only are you not digesting, even if you ate the most organic, farm to table, delicious, healthy food, you're not getting those nutrients. You're also not getting the deep rest
Mhm.
of sleep. You might be unconscious for 6 to 7 hours, but you're not getting deep sleep. You're not your brain isn't flushing the lymphatic system, like, you're not in the rest and digest at all. And that was like, whoa,
Mhm.
right? It's very motivating for me to really try and eat earlier and to have the bigger lunch. But yeah, I want to really put that on the schedule, because I know we've talked about this. You've had so many clients that like didn't shift anything else except the timing of the meals, and like the years of weight and water
Years of
retention
weight
just like
came off.
came
Yeah.
off that one shift. Um, let's talk about my favorite Ayurveda practice, the Abhyanga.
Abhyanga, oil massage, oiling the skin with organic
Mm.
oil or organic shea butter if you prefer that. Yeah, oiling of the skin. So the
Game
skin is our
changer.
right? It's a huge game changer.
Game changer. My favorite thing. I bought a oil warmer for my kids. They each have them in their bathroom. I mean, I can't get my son to do it, but I got my daughter to do it. Yeah.
It's so good. It's just so good. Yeah, it's a non-negotiable for me. I got in the habit of massaging my skin when I was like 14, with like not
Johnson's baby
yeah,
oil.
exactly. With like yeah, Crabtree and Everlyn. That's what I used for like a
Johnson's
decade,
baby oil
Yeah,
in the
totally.
shower
Yeah.
after on the water. Puts the petroleum on its skin.
Yeah, had all sorts of dyes and
Yeah.
and chemicals and preservatives and perfumes in there and such, and that's all we all know it's poison stuff for the body. The body cannot digest that. It's causing all sorts of trouble for the system. But what we like in Ayurveda is to coat the largest organ in the body with organic moisture. And the skin, being the largest organ, is the largest sense organ as well, and it's the barrier between the microcosm and the macrocosm, right? It's your protective layer, and it also has billions and billions of nerve endings,
Mhm.
so it's a direct input into the nervous system. Um, and the skin, when it gets cracked and dry and rough and broken down, is will end up with a lower functioning immune system.
Yeah.
Is essentially what will
It's a
happen.
breach in the system,
Mhm.
right? It's a place where viruses and bacteria and pathogens can enter.
And especially this time of year, as we move into the drier, colder season, folks may already be feeling that the skin is getting dry and cracky, or the lips and such, as we started with today. And so, not only do we want to kick up more hydration, in the diet, so we moisturize from internally, but we moisturize externally as well, external oleation. And so, this is a daily practice, daily oil massage. And because the skin is absorbing whatever's going on to the skin, the organic choice is essential, right? We say in Ayurveda, whatever goes on the skin, you should be able to put in your mouth
Yeah.
because your body is digesting it, or, as it were, not digesting it so well. And so making that shift, for those of you who like use Neutrogena or something like that every day, I would implore you to, you know, see what it would feel like to shift to something that is organic, something that is cruelty free,
Mhm.
right? Ahimsa, the most important
Ahimsa.
step of yoga, right? Is non-harming to self and others. So we want cruelty-free products, and something that really feels really good on the skin and actually nourishes the skin. So this season, you might start with a more neutral oil like sunflower or almond oil or jojoba oil. Those are pretty neutral. Not too hot, not too cool. But as the season unfolds, you might want something a little more warming, like a sesame oil or an herbalized oil that has warm herbs infused into it. So those kinds of oils can make you feel so grounded and warm and toasty and soft and supple, and the skin is like, look, my skin is shiny. It's so soft. I've been oiling I just turned 50. I've been oiling for 36 years,
If you're watching
Yeah.
on YouTube, that is the calling card for Ayurveda right there.
No procedures or shots or injections or anything, just oil and moisturizer every day, and lots of good hydration, and lots of breath work, and nature time, that matters too. So the oil massage is a practice that is meant to be done daily, except actually if you're sick, if you're fighting off a fever or a cold or COVID or pneumonia or something like that. We never put oil or lotion on the skin when you're fighting off like an immune system sickness, because it can clog the tubes. It can slow down your body's ability to fight off that fever or sickness. So that's an important contraindication that often doesn't get mentioned when people are talking about self-massage, but don't do it if you're sick. But, sick with like a cold kind of sickness. But otherwise, it is a practice that can be done any time of day. You can do a quick sort of like a Great British Baking Show rough and ready version, like a 2-minute, just slap the oil on and moisturize your skin, or you can slow it way down, as we recommend, as often as you can do it. Slow it way down and let it be a 5 or 10 or 20-minute self-massage where it's like you light a candle, you put on incense, you turn the lights down in the bathroom, and like make it a whole self-care situation.
Yeah, it becomes a ritual that just becomes a cornerstone of your day and a real chance to really pause. Again, in the text, it's recommended to do it. Leave it on for at least 7 minutes, 1 minute for each level of tissues. And then the shower, the warmth and moist helps it go down, which is also why the lotion is not recommended, because it sits on the outside layer. It doesn't penetrate the way that the oil will go all the way in. The oil will nourish the bone tissue eventually, right? It goes so deep. But it's also like a force field.
It's
The
like an
oil
invisible
becomes
shield,
like this force field that you can just go out into the world, and you have this layer of protection and a layer in between, like a buffer, which is, kind of nice right now.
It's so nice.
It's
Yeah,
so
I mean,
nice.
that changes that right there, like the Abhyanga, it's said to slow down the aging process, which is why I do it twice a day. And it is fortifying, as you're saying. It really does soothe the nerves, protects the nerves, it calms the mind, it supports good sleep. It's one of the best recommendations for anxiety and panic. It makes you soft and supple. It boosts immunity. It enhances circulation. It helps to clear out congestion from the lymph. There's so many benefits to it. But for the fall and winter Vata season, it's going to counter the cold dryness with this warm unctuousness that just creates. I like your wording there, Kari, of a force field. It's like you can go out into this stressful season of life and stressful season of the year and feel like calm and collected.
That cold roughness does not penetrate that layer of oil. It really doesn't. Um, and we just have a couple minutes left. I could talk to you about this forever. I know you live in a beautiful state with nature all around you. You are very big into getting outside, being out in nature. Any tips for people, like just the grounding and soothing qualities of that, but how they can protect themselves when it's more, cold and windy outside when they're out?
Yeah. Uh, Focus on preventative medicine. So even if it's like 75 degrees right now today here in Vermont, start pull out your little fall scarves and throw a beanie in your bag, and have a light pair of gloves that you put in your car. Like, pull that stuff out. Don't wait until it's really cold to grab those items. We need this season of light outerwear, and put it on early, because you want to prevent yourself from getting too cold or too much wind accumulating. And one of the main places that accumulates is actually in the ears. And I mentioned this at the beginning, like the ears are actually governed by Vata, and the ears are very sensitive to cold and to wind. And so if you're going out walking, or if you're hanging out in the park, if you're just standing on your balcony or hanging out on your deck, um, if it's a little windy or a little cool, just just cover your ears with a shawl or a hat or something like that, because that can make a big difference to how you feel. So that would be a big recommendation, and I would encourage everyone to just spend a little more time outside. So if you're in the city, like, get to a rooftop, get out
Mhm.
on your balcony, stand on your fire escape if you can, get to a park, do some gazing at the sky, gazing at trees, um, care for some plants in your own home. That's a great way to connect with nature. Yeah. And get to the water side, right? Go hang out at the pier, take some walks, in different parts of the city than you usually do, and see if you can have a little bit more time with the sky, with the plants and the earth, with the water surrounding. And that can be just the easiest way to feel better. Nature is free and incredibly healing.
Yeah. It was so good. And soothing, we didn't really touch on the different doshas, but soothing for all of them, regardless of what your personal constitution is, but also through this time when you're witnessing the shift, your awareness of it increases. And oftentimes just having that awareness will help you feel more um in control and not just being pulled by the suffering or the woes or how did I wait a minute, how did it all of a sudden get freezing or get so dark so quickly? It's like you have that awareness.
Right, really paying attention to the changing of the light and that kind of thing, and it's, sky gazing, silent time, these are the remedies to overwhelm. When folks are feeling overwhelmed, the remedy is to do less, right? And so if your schedule doesn't allow you to do less, then how can you reduce multitasking? Like, turn off the radio while you're driving, go for a walk without AirPods in, turn off the TV while you're eating. Those are all choices for doing less, like less information coming in through the sense organs. So nature really supports this, as long as we're willing to, like, be with the nature
Mhm.
and not be distracted by other things.
Yeah, because everything you just mentioned is live in an attention. They're vying for your attention.
Mm,
You can't give 100% of your attention if you're splitting yourself in two
mm,
to anything, right? So don't check email while you're eating or watch TV because then you're not actually paying attention to the food, the chance of overeating or gulping air in with your when you're eating, not chewing enough, and then it's not kind of digestion starts in the mouth. These are all things that contribute again to those woes and that upset. But listening to a podcast while you're walking, well, like, did you enjoy the walk? Would you be able to talk about all the things that you saw on the way, or would you, it's like again, it's this tug of war kind of thing where it's just like one thing. Um,
Yeah, I pretty much only listen to podcasts when I'm doing like a jigsaw puzzle, something like that, or like folding laundry and just in one place, just doing one thing so that my attention's not pulled in too many directions. Yeah. So those are all choices, to really consider.
Such good wisdom, Larissa.
Mm.
Thank you so much for being here with me. It's always so nice to see you. Again, if you have questions about the cleanse, the links will be in the show notes. You can look at the website. We have a whole ebook that we gave out this year about cleansing and how to do it on
Yeah.
your own, or you can do it with us. The benefits, protocols, recipes, all of that. So you can also get that. It'll be linked in the show notes. Larissa teaches on the platform all the time. She teaches seasonal yoga. We didn't even talk about that.
Next
Ayurveda
one
and
starts
yoga.
October 1st. Yeah, strong bones and
Yeah,
muscles,
it
little
starts next
weightlifting.
week. It's
Yeah,
probably
next
going to be
week.
the day that this drops. So,
Yeah.
you can come into the first session. Yeah. For strong bones and muscles, which are also those long bones are governed by Vata dosha, right? You'll begin to learn the language and understand it. And it just is this Mobius strip. You just keep going down, to more balance and longevity and health. Wishing you all
Mhm.
wellness, happiness. Larissa, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
My
Take
pleasure.
good care, everyone. Bye.